Starting up a business is hard, really, really hard. Your chances of failure are high. You're likely to lose both your sleep and your hair. But luckily for you, you're not alone. Welcome to ET Startup School, your step-by-step guide to starting, building and consolidating your startup business idea. Your teachers at the ET Startup School will be some of India's best-known entrepreneurs, VCs and domain experts. So grab a notebook, pay close attention. School is about to start. Today's class at ET Startup School is called Where Do I Get the Money From? Your teacher for this class is Preeta Sukhtankar. After working in the fashion, media and entertainment industries, Preeta founded The Label Life, a direct-to-consumer clothing, accessories and home decor brand. Goat Brand Labs acquired a 90% stake in the company in 2022 for an undisclosed sum of money. Preeta is currently working in stealth mode, building Pop Club, a horizontal coalition loyalty ecosystem front-ended by a lifestyle app. Preeta Sukhtankar, welcome to ET Startup School. Okay, so here's where we are at the stage of entrepreneurship. I've come up with an idea. The next thing I'm going to need is my own money. So first question, should I start with my own money?
Suresh, there's never a straight answer to this question, right? It all depends on what you're building. Having spent the last almost a better half of this decade and being given advice like never raise money and try and put in only your money, I am now leaning towards the answer being don't raise money till you need it. You know, and again, you have to define why you need it and do you really need it. But ideally, if you can bootstrap, as far as possible, bootstrap. By bootstrap, I mean put in your own money. Don't even ask friends and family for it. Reach a sort of PMF stage, and only then think about raising money. And clearly define why you need to raise money.
What if I don't have too much money? What do I do? Do I take a loan? What do I do then?
So to me, again, list down. I do this a lot with even friends or just folks who ask me how I go about doing this. I think it may sound really basic, but maybe list what you're doing this for, right? Are you building a business for most people build businesses to make a lot of money, right? Some people do it really to build legacy, or some are doing it for passion. I mean, I don't know where you're falling into any one of those three categories, if at all. But I would actually list down what my outcome, even financial outcome would be, right? If your financial outcome is to just do better monthly, to better than your current paycheck, or is your financial outcome to buy an island in near Ibiza, where most people land? I would then actually step back and look at what an AOP or an annual operating plan for your current business would be, and then really decide. Because I actually think if your business is a tech business, you are going to need a lot of money, because you're probably building a startup from scratch, and an app, or usually it's an app from scratch, and that takes a lot of money. I mean, we know how much engineers are costing right now as we're recording this, right, Suresh? So the basic advice would be, do not raise money. It's not as easy as people think it is. Once you have investors, and especially institutional investors, you're on a clock. There's nothing like, it's going to be institutional investment means any sort of celebration, right? It just means that you have to get to a place of returning their money twofold, threefold, as soon as possible.
I'm not an entrepreneur myself, but I have heard about something called the 3F rule of raising money. And the 3F stands for family, friends, and fools. Did you borrow or raise money from the 3Fs?
Okay, I don't know about the fools, but mostly family and friends means you're raising from fools, right? Or you're building something that's, it has their buy-in. But I didn't raise from any, because I think I'm very middle class Maharashtrian, and I feel like asking a friend almost always feels like it's a favor. But I do think that, especially if you are in a situation where you're either coupled or this is your mother's money or your father's money and they have excess, why not? Again, it falls in the same bracket of bootstrapping, right? I would bootstrap. But yes, family and friends is always the first round to go. But if you can actually, which is what a lot of entrepreneurs these days do, if they're onto something exciting and they can actually see, their first Series A or their seed, almost a term sheet in sight, you should raise from family and friends, because why not give back? If you know that you're going to raise your first two rounds and they seem to be right there for the taking, then I think you should raise from family and friends.
And just to be clear, Preeta, you're saying raise from family and friends. This is not borrow or ask for a grant or something. You're giving them stake in your company in exchange for the
Yes,
money they're giving you.
absolutely.
It's a transaction, right?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, again, if your family and friends have excess funds, then it makes sense. But taking a loan from a bank is, you asked me this before, is near impossible for entrepreneurs unless you have collateral. I mean, it's literally a no go. All these grants that they talk about, all these startup founder loans, none of this exists, right? Especially if your company is in the red, which it usually is for the first couple of months, or even in most startups in India for years. It still doesn't mean that, it definitely doesn't mean that you got a loan.
So banks are out of the question. I've heard about this term called venture debt.
Yeah.
Did you ever consider venture debt?
So I did take venture debt. Most people do take venture debt, but venture debt is very expensive, Suresh. So again, depending on the stage of your company, usually the way venture debt functions is, if you have raised venture capital, is only when venture debt comes in, right? So they sort of ride along the person who's investing with you. They don't, almost never come in without, one doesn't come in without the other. So it's a bit of a catch 22. You will have to raise a venture cap to get venture debt, or have raised it in the past, or at least have a term sheet in sight, because they usually tag along. But best is just pure debt, right? Venture debt is always more expensive. Again, you get a working capital line depending on, again, what you're building. Usually, working capital is the cheapest form of fundraise, in my view. But again, that only comes if you already have raised.
All right. So in order to raise money, you already have to have raised money first. It's a bit of a catch 22, it seems like. So, Preeta, what exactly is a term sheet?
A term sheet usually details out the terms of the transaction that you're about to do, right? Things that you should watch out for are just the basics, because there's so many hidden items in a term sheet that most founders get very excited when they get a term sheet, but reading between the lines is what is essential, in like in any contract, right? I would actually look at obviously the amount that you're raising, but I would actually look at all the rights that they expect, or from the founder or themselves, right? A lot of the term sheet is around something that we call due diligence, and usually when you get a term sheet, you get very excited, and but then there's like 3 months of due diligence and a lot that can happen during that time, right? So I would actually look at a term sheet and hope that you get more than one term sheet, because what happens then is that you can at least hurry up one term sheet before the other, right? So if one institutional investor is giving you one, you usually say, "Oh, I have another one," and they're quickly closing the round. And these are just obviously negotiation tactics. But I've seen a lot of term sheets fail, including with us, and it could be sometimes because the investor just loses steam, or the idea isn't as valid anymore because they've got something else going on, or they've just changed their mind. So I would actually say that moving to a term sheet phase may be exciting, but try and move on it quick. Having said that, what do you look for in a term sheet, right? Again, depends on the business that you're building, but usually drag along rights, tag along rights. I mean, these are all very technical things, but what this means is that you just need a lawyer, Suresh. That's
Okay.
the other
All right.
thing that people should actually
Get a
talk
lawyer.
about. Yeah, get a lawyer. I mean, a lot of people say, "Oh, I'm just going to ask a friend to read the term sheet. I'm just going to ask, oh, my friend's a lawyer. He'll help me out." But get a lawyer. And again, if you really need to know, get a finance person. I think the mistakes that I made in the beginning was, using an accountant or having a friend's accountant look into, even day to day running. But I think the first thing that most people should get on is a finance person, because even now when I look at various term sheets that I've signed, I missed a lot, and in my hurry to actually close the round and be like, oh, I need money in the bank, I agreed to a lot of dodgy terms, and had I had some time, I wouldn't have. And that again is because I didn't hire the right finance folks in house.
All right, now let's talk about the different kinds of money. What's an angel investor and what makes them so angelic? Are they like really nice guys and girls who love you?
I mean, I love how these questions are. You're just trying to get the best out of me. So, okay, most angel investors are not angels, only because what it means to have an angel investor is to basically be the first person to give you money, right? And I'm not talking about family and friends. This is usually somebody who's made a lot of angel investments and understand what they're doing. My angel investor actually asked me for 40% of my business when I started off,
Oh,
because
so it's not
they,
entirely angelic. They want a significant pound of flesh.
absolutely not. I mean, I don't even know why it's called angel investments. But again, depending on your business, right? I see a very big difference when folks are building what they call, usually folks who are building tech or SaaS businesses, right? Or, they can see a really huge scale potential ahead of them. And that's when, I recently spoke to someone very senior in the business, and he actually told me that why would you give anything more than 2 to 3% of your business to anyone? And I was like, wow, how does this work? How do you even negotiate 3 to 4%? We are being asked for
30,
40%.
40. Yeah.
Yeah. So again, depending on who you are, second time founder, first time founder, I assume you're talking to first time founders. And first time founders, you should be very, very, very open to giving anything between 10 to 40% to your first investor, right? 40% means you suddenly got a co-founder, and I hope that your investor is doing as much work as you. But be ready for anywhere between 10 to 40. Having said that, Suresh, I also want to, since you have a non-finance person on this particular, podcast, of yours deliberately. So I also want to say that when this was something Haresh Chavla, who was my first angel investor, and no, he wasn't the one asking for 40%, but he's a shark. Which Haresh Chavla told me कि ये सब तो finally paper है. There's no point in negotiating equity. There's no point in saying this is yours, this is paperwork, because finally paperwork means nothing. If you really build something of value to your angel investor or your investor, everybody reneges, everybody discusses the deal again, everybody finally does what you would want them to do. So if you're building something successful, you should really just put your head down and work. Get money where you can get money from. Literally, just take the money. If you're getting it, just take it. Don't say, okay, not 10%, not 15%, just take it. Because the color of money is, always green.
And I assume renege is startup lingo for renegotiate. Okay, now let's
Oh,
get to the next kind of money. What is pre-seed money and where do I get it from?
so usually very organized, by the way. Seed means that you're almost at your viable market product, like product viability of the product. So usually pre-seed is just before that. So if you had to say you were building an app, pre-seed would be almost similar to angel, in the sense that you have an idea, you want some money. These folks believe in the fact that you could get to a viable product, right? So number one is you raise this pre-seed, you start building the team, hire a few people, actually start working on the product that you're trying to launch. You go to seed stage only when you feel like you have the product now, and this is what it sort of looks like, and give me money to get to product market fit. Product market fit is when you go into raising venture cap.
Okay, so we've gotten through the first round of family, friends, and fools. We've gotten through pre-seed, now seed money. Now, what is pre-series A money?
So, honestly, Suresh, these are all just terms, right? At every stage, you just need more money to get to your next stage of the business. You need money to really have folks notice you, right? And that would be always the first stage of a business as well as why you need money. Then you reach to, then is engagement, right? Again, so you've got somebody to your product, whatever it may be, an app, a bakery, wherever. How do you actually engage them when they're there? You'll need money for that as well, because now you're building a great looking app. You're, I don't know, lighting candles in your bakery, whatever it may be. Then is monetization. Monetization always is number three. You're really
Correct.
setting up building blocks for that. And monetization could be anything, right? In an app, it could be you're, charging some people for something. In an e-commerce platform, it could be finally the commission that you're making on the product. In a bakery, obviously, it is somebody
The
paying.
margin, profit margin that you earn. Yeah.
And then finally, it is really retention. Now, what is ending up happening is by the time you reach your retention place, you are going to need money for the first three. And then retention is usually a smooth sailing business. You're not a startup anymore, or you are a startup, but you're getting the person back, right? All these terms for seed, pre-seed, this, that, basically it's just different valuations as you're building along the business and proving how successful it is, right? And for me, at least personally, I never went past. I mean, I raised angel and then I raised pre-series A and I stayed there. I mean, I never really went ahead and raised money because you have to really at some point of the business look and say, decide whether you really want to scale. If you keep scaling, it means you'll keep raising, but it will also mean that you keep returning. Finally, when you're raising investment, in absolute layman's terms, which is what I am, there is some basic level of responsibility to the people you raise money from, right?
Yeah, that was my next question. If I raise Series A, do I need to pay back my seed investors and the pre-seed investors and everybody below the chain? Do they all get their money back with interest or with valuation or with whatever delta difference or something?
Again, it depends on what sheets you've signed, what the terms of engagement are. But usually, Suresh, you don't return money back until you've made money, right? And again, for example, in the new business that we're building today, the valuations are much higher, and it also means that it is exciting or it is enticing for investors to want to own more in this business as we go forward. So those are the guys who really determine whether they want to take back equity from your original investors. So they usually buy it back at a better valuation than people came in for. But of course, Suresh, that is gold, right? That I think 10 in a million startups actually achieve for their. I mean, you and I both have angel invested, and we both know whether we've made money or not. But I think the beautiful ones are the ones that we know are going to have better valuations even in just Series B, and then you get out. That's amazing if you can do that, but that usually never happens. You last out till there is some sort of exit, some sort of buyout, some sort of IPO is
So,
there.
Preeta, as a first time entrepreneur, what do I need to know about the pecking order of VCs? Because I keep hearing the name Sequoia and Tiger Global and all these big names. Is there a pecking order? Should I go to a small VC first? And as my Okad increases, should I go to a bigger and bigger VC? Or how does it work?
So I think, Suresh, I'm getting to understand why you've got me on this particular episode. But as someone who didn't know what VC meant, actually didn't know what VC meant. I didn't even know what it stood for. When I started the label life, people used to say, "Oh, this means you're going to raise money," and I was like, "Okay, what does that mean?" I actually Googled it. Those days, even now, there's something called uh, Quora, and Quora gave me most of my answers. Right? I love how I'm actually saying this. I don't care, but it's true. So I used to write, actually ask questions on Quora, and there used to be communities, and people actually they're great answers on Quora. You don't need things like this. You should just go to Quora. But Having said that, for me, I think it was quite simple. Um, I knew what I was trying to build, so I actually went, and I think this is a great philosophy for. We follow it even today. We actually look for similar businesses internationally or similar businesses in India, and you then figure out which investor has what kind of interest, right? They're consumer facing VCs, they're VCs who only invest in tech, they're VCs who invest in female founders, they're VCs who invest, you'll find a lot of literature written on these guys, and then you pick the best, right? I would do it the other way. I would actually start with what I call the Ivy League guys, and then keep going, because if they're not interested, you have to keep going downwards. But having said that, there's so many options now. I feel like there've never been these many options, and depending on what you are building, you'll find what is it? You'll find a fool out there, as you said.
Correct. That's my next question. What about crowdfunding? There are crowdfunding platforms today and group investment platforms or syndicate investment platforms. If you were to restart your earlier business today, would you consider one of those?
Um, Yes and no, Suresh, because again, depends on what you want to. Because crowdfunding to me still is a family and friends round, only because again, when you're building a crowdfund, I mean, you're building a business. The crowdfunding platform only allows you to facilitate an easier raise, right? You usually send that link to family and friends, and they would send it to others, and you would literally put it on groups that you know. It never really ends up attracting strangers, which it actually should, right? Kickstarter, for example, in the US is or anywhere else is a good way of profiling a innovation or an idea. Like maybe I don't know, a T-shirt that lights up at concerts or something very random, like more inventive. But it still requires a fair level of marketing, and now even you can even spend more to attract more, just the way Facebook would. So I still remain a bit sketchy on how crowdfunding things work in India, unless again it's just that you have a great network, and that's the network that you attract. I wouldn't do it again. No, actually, I wouldn't change anything about my last journey except the outcome, of course. But that's again, that's it should be in your control. But I guess the last couple of years have not been in anyone's control. So
That's true. Okay, let's assume I've done family, friends, and fools. I've done pre-seed, seed, pre-series A. When I reach Series A funding and I raise that, is that an indication that I've sort of arrived on the entrepreneur scene?
actually, I think Series B is the one, because Series A is still a risk, because you're still just at probably your first year of your concept, and that means nothing, right? You can still be a little happy that you are somewhere, but I think Series B is the one that that this is now a business and people are supporting the business that you're building and not the idea that you have. And of course, Series C, Series D just means that you're on a roll, and this is literally there are very few companies that have raised it at an up round consistently. And if you're raising it at an up round every time by 2x or 3x every single time, you're on a roll. And there are very few businesses. We all know established businesses over a decade that are now taking what they call down rounds, and that's not a good place to be.
That's startup jargon. What is an up round and what is a down round?
So an up round is if you do say 1 million, and then at your I'm going to start with your seed. Then you say you do 2 million at your
At 2
pre-seed.
million valuation, not revenue. You need to be valued at 2 million.
Nobody cares about revenues yet.
Nobody
Revenues are,
talks about revenues in the startup world. Okay, got it.
and then you do 3 million and 4 millions and so on, and that is an up round. But when you start really saying, okay, I'm staying at 1 million, that means your valuation is going nowhere, and then you start actually raising sub 1 million, then that means you're doing a down round, right?
Okay.
And
And you get
currently,
valued back downwards.
you get value back downwards, which just is tough for any business to
All
for
right.
that.
The final question to you, Preeta. Let's assume you've raised the money, you're back at work today, morning, you're happy that you have money in the bank, but now your investor wants to interfere in your decisions or wants to know why you're making decisions. Does that catch entrepreneurs off guard that investors suddenly are taking an active role in running your business?
No, that is why I say don't raise money. Bootstrap as much as possible, because every investor is going to interfere in your business at some point or the
It is
other.
their money after all.
It's their money. It is questions that they have to answer. And let me tell you, there are many examples of some of the investors that you mentioned literally running companies today. I mean, a lot of ex-investors are founders today, and for a reason. And please be prepared for investors to run your business. I mean, there's no question there won't be interference, unless, of course, again, you're a super successful founder who's just killing it. They're very rare occasions today. Series D and almost about to IPO founders can see investors not interfere, but be very involved in their businesses.
All right. With that, it's time for the rapid fire round of questions for Preeta Sukhtankar. We have only three questions, Karan Johar style, and you have to answer, let's say, in 5 words or less. Question one, Preeta, what does money mean to you?
Freedom
Okay,
only.
just one word.
Freedom to do what I want.
Second, how much money is enough money?
It's a good question. Um, Enough to have that same freedom that I discussed, some peace of mind. Actually, yeah,
I'm told the popular figure is 25 crores.
no. I have no such figure in mind. By the way, Suresh, I have to tell you, it used to be 10 crores for me, but it's not 10 crores anymore. But I don't think it's 25 either. Given not my new thing, I want to give half of my next exit to charity. Like,
Yeah, so make 50 and give away 25.
yeah, okay, I'm okay with that.
All right, last question. If they made a Bollywood film on your entrepreneurial life, who should play you?
Given my current obsession or forever obsession with
Vicky
Priyanka.
Kaushal. I think Vicky Kaushal should play you.
Okay, fine. But it's
No,
Priyanka Chopra, always.
Priyanka Chopra
For
should play.
any role. For any role.
I agree. Priyanka Chopra should play me as well. I agree with you entirely. All right, Preeta Sukhtankar, thank you very much for being a teacher on ET Startup School.
I hope I was of some help. Or else
were.
there's always Kiora.
You were, indeed. So that brings us to almost the end of today's class at ET Startup School. If you'd like to be a good student, check out and do the homework assignment in the show notes. If you liked the podcast, share it with family, friends, even your frenemies. ET Startup School is produced by Animesh Das with inputs from Anupriya Nair, Erika D'Souza, Arijit Burman, Shilpa Sharma, Harish Chavla, Govind Mundra and Vishal Bhandari. ET Startup School is available on economictimes.com and ET Play, as well as Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, JioSaavn and Google Podcasts.